Allow me to start, ladies and gentlemen, frolics, by saying that I love Demon. You know, the NWOBHM, NWOBHM, NWOBHM. I've never said it before with all the letters, actually. Never spelt it out before. The new wave of British heavy metal band. Love there. I mean, I love the albums up to the first album, Unexpected Guest. I love the Plague. And then, with British Standard Approved, and I've reviewed it before on podcast, I thought, not massively keen, to be honest. Didn't seem like a rocker to me. Sadly then, co-writer Mal Spooner passed. And the album that came out after that, Heart of Our Time, which I tried at the time, came out in 85, didn't it? I thought, I'm not so sure, and I listened to it recently as well, and thought, this is too soft. I then came back to Demon, and realised that they continued to produce albums. Recently had a look at the albums they produced, and thought, oh, and I listened to them, and I look at the covers, and I listened to the music, and thought, blimey, rather good. And, of course, you know that recently they've come back to their pomp, seen them on YouTube live with Mr. Hill. Still got all the pipes, the great vocals, and they sounded great, looked great. And the albums recently have been harder. Last one's not as hard, but actually the upcoming, is it out now? I think it is. It's not as hard. It's got more melody to it. But they are in rude health, which is great. So I've gone back to Heart of Our Time. It's not as bad as I remembered it, but, you know, for a band I loved so much in those early days, it's not a patch on any of that. It does try to capture US radio rock, in my view. I've got some notes here, which I'm going to bring up to my face area, the Fizzog area, so I can have a look. So, I mean, Heart of Our Time, it's poppy AOR, but it has got, it's got a catchy female-augmented chorus. The heart of our time. It's the kind of thing you could hear in pop charts, actually, because remember, not pop tarts, pop charts, because remember at the time, AOR, was big. And, you know, you got bands like Bon Jovi making it big. Slippery When Wet is 85, isn't it? So that's that kind of radio rock thing. Living on a Prayer, all of that. And you can't blame them for pushing this. See, British Standard Approved is more atmospheric. They really go for the concept of that. The concept of, the Titanic and all of that. And it doesn't really work for me. This album does a bit more. In Your Own Light is a song which is power chords and piano. It sounds quite tough, but it's slow and a bit ponderous. It really does rely on a big Dave Hill sing, and he can bloody well do it, you know. Things like Genius, some people, rockers, would have said, I'm sure, well, this 80s beat and bass, the kind of plucked bass, is more like a Kajagoogoo thing than a rock thing. The bubbling synth as well, it's interesting. Then there's a floaty 80s synth bit to it. I can understand why they're going for that. You know, there are a lot of bands going for that, but really, if you change your style in that way, people are going to say, oh. If you start with that style, people are going to say, oh, you're that kind of band. And you get more success, don't you? Certainly with Demon, they went through quite a lot of different changes, and this is one of them. Expressing the Heart it's a really ponderous atmospheric synth and panpipes at one point with an acoustic. Bloody hell. Emotional vocal, which is nice, but it just doesn't float my boat, or get my vote, in fact. It is slow, it is languorous, it is, as I say, ponderous. And I'm not keen on that. I'm more keen on Crossfire, which has those atmospheric synths, and I don't mind that when it's got a prog synth line attached to it, and a simple chorus which drives it along. Quite like the sweetness in Grown Up, and with the piano and the big power chords. I mean, it really is kind of bluster, but I like that. It's not a great album, this. I can understand why they were pushing for that radio rock feel. And you could say, well, they're pushing towards the US, but it doesn't sound like a US album, this. It does sound like a thoroughly UK rock chart album. And they couldn't really do that, I don't think. It's a good attempt and a good example, but I'm afraid that's all. And that's a shame. But it's better than I remembered it, even recently. Maybe if I listen to it next week, it'll be great. But I doubt it. Ta-ta.